This week we had a marathon vote on the fisheries reforms. You'll remember that earlier in the year we passed the main common fisheries policy changes which ended discards and other bad practices. This time we had to look at investments and the money that goes into the fisheries policy, and what we didn't want to see was fleet renewals being paid for by the European Union, particularly when there are too many boats out there already catching too few fish. Luckily, we got our way with the ALDE group, with the Liberal group, put forward proposals that boats should not be renewed through the common fisheries policy, and that vote went through. Unfortunately, we didn't get our way on renewal of engines, so they can still put new engines on old boats and get some subsidy towards that. So it wasn't perfect, but largely it was a pretty good reform. This week also we saw Aung San Suu Kyi come to receive the Sakharov Prize. You might think this curious because we've just awarded it to Malala Yousafzai. Well, Aung San Suu Kyi was awarded the prize in 1990, but at that time was under house arrest in Burma and was unable to come and collect it. So she was here this week and she made a wonderful speech, and she particularly concentrated on the way young people in a repressive regime, under a repressive regime, stop asking the question why. Why should I comply? Why shouldn't I have my democratic rights? And she said that we should never stop asking the question why. Another thing we've looked at this week is the tragedy in Lampedusa. The boats coming across, many lives lost, and probably many more lives lost that we know nothing about when boats sink, bringing people across from North Africa. So we decided we'd put more resources into Frontex particularly, and Eurosur, and also I think we need to look more closely at addressing this problem in the countries where these people are coming from. So that was the strategy that was decided this week to try and address the problem of boat people coming across the Mediterranean. We also had a couple of regulations passed this week by the Parliament on medical devices. This came out of the problems we had earlier in the year with the implants, with the breast implants. There's a lot of invasive medical devices which are unregulated, and so we felt the Parliament felt that it was necessary to bring some of these devices under some form of regulatory framework to ensure their safety. This was again could have gone too far. Some of the other groups wanted this to become extremely bureaucratic and go too far, but we managed with the Liberal group to push the compromises through that we wanted, which was a good arrangement between safety on the one hand and not being too bureaucratic on the other. Yesterday I was speaking on free movement and the free movement of people around Europe, the free movement of labour, and its relationship with different member state social security systems. Obviously we've got a little problem with this at the moment in the UK with a European Court of Justice situation. Now what we mustn't do is compromise free movement. We mustn't compromise free movement, but we also need to be able to develop our own social security systems without too much fear of intervention from Europe. I made a speech in the plenary on this. I was actually interrupted with a blue card from one of the UKIP members, the Earl of Dartmouth, but I was able to answer his issue about do we want a lot more immigration, because it isn't about getting a lot more immigration, it's about free movement, and people from Birmingham and the West Midlands will be just as able to go and find jobs in the rest of Europe. And if of course we've got labour shortages or skill shortages in the West Midlands in any particular sector, it means that people can come and work here. We've also had a CRIM report, that's the Crime Committee. We have become more and more worried about fraud on the European budget. It's very, very difficult to counter this fraud because the member states themselves are actually the spending, they do the spending of European money, and very often they feel that it's not too much in their interests to really clamp down too hard on fraud. The result might be actually less money going into that member state. So we felt that one idea we put forward is a public prosecutor specifically to look at fraud of the European budget. Now, this would not superimpose itself over the top of member state legal systems. It would work with them. So there is no problem here with subsidiarity. This is simply a means of trying to bring fraud with the European budget under control. The final thing we've done this week that's of real importance is actually finally agreed the budget for 2014. It's 3%. It represents a 3% cut, so it means that the European budget is respecting the problems that the member states are having in having to cut their budgets to meet to get their deficits down, and it's a responsible budget but still an adequate budget. So I think it's finally we've got our 2014 budget agreed, and we can go forward, and the programmes that would have been blocked now can get underway, and we can hopefully in the next few weeks finally get a multi-financial framework with the long-term budget through to 2020 agreed.